Moonshine Jesus, baby, alright. Moonshine Jesus, a surprising delight. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show. Glad that you could join us today. We hope that you will follow us on social media. We hope that you will chime in wherever you are watching in the comment section so that you can participate. And we hope that you'll pour yourself a drink and be ready to listen to us chat about the Netflix show Ozark. We are a spoiler-full zone, not a spoiler-free zone, and we are brought to you by progressivechristianity.org. Hope you will check us out and find some wonderful resources there. I'm here today, as always, with my buddy Mark. How you doing today, Mark?
I am doing very well, very well. I would like to add to your introduction that, as always, we are not a spoiler-free zone, and that is probably going to be very important as we talk about the conclusion and wrap up of Ozark.
Conclusion of Ozark. Can you believe it's over? What a ride, man!
I know.
What a ride! So if we're gonna go on this ride and we're gonna talk about the spoilers, we're gonna need some drinks.
You better believe it. Better believe it.
Do you have one?
I do.
What do you got?
I am drinking an Ozark Howler. So there's have you heard of? You used to live kind of in the area. Have you heard?
I lived in the Ozarks. Yeah. I don't know about an Ozark Howler though. No, I want to hear about it.
It's a mythical creature. It's a mythical creature, but and if you ever see it, you'll end up dead. And there's plenty of death in the Ozarks. So I felt like it was a fitting themed drink. It's got vodka, and part of what makes it Ozark, it has rum chata, which is a drink that is made in the Ozarks. Heavy cream, some chocolate syrup for the side of the glass, and a little bit on the coloring, and a little vanilla flavoring. And I have tried to play up the Ozark theme. I've put mine in a mason jar, glass with rimmed it with a little bit of black sugar. So that's mine. How about you, sir?
That looks delicious, and I feel like I'm a bad Ozark boy. I don't know. I've never heard of this mythical creature. Like, what's wrong with me?
I'm trusting the internet, and the internet's never wrong. So
it never is. So Mark, you and we're often on the same wavelength.
Yeah,
so
this is true. This is true.
Here's what I've got. I've got a moonshine margarita. And I am also drinking mine out of a mason jar with a hand.
Well, you got a nice handle on yours.
Yeah, isn't that nice? To keep my hand. So I've got moonshine, white lightning, old smoky moonshine, grapefruit soda, lime juice, orange juice, and simple syrup. So,
sounds lovely.
Cheers.
Here's to a great show, man. Oh my goodness.
All right. Yours good?
That could be trouble. You could drink a lot of that without realizing.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you just saw a mythical creature popping out of the screen at you.
I got a suspicion after one of these you might.
Okay, well, let's see what mythical creatures Mark sees when we come back from the drop.
Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. Today, Caleb and I will be looking at the Netflix smash hit Ozark. A little background, if you've not watched it before, this is a story of a family. Well, basically, after a money laundering scheme for a Mexican drug cartel, you can already tell it's a family show. After that scheme for a drug cartel goes wrong, financial advisor Marty Bird proposes to make amends by offering to set up an even bigger laundry making operation for the cartel out of the Missouri Ozarks. And he he moves his family from the Chicago suburbs to kind of a remote summer resort in the Ozarks, where he and ultimately his family as well also become entangled with local criminals, the Langmore family, the Snell family, and later even with the Kansas City Mafia. And folks, if you haven't picked up on it yet, this show's pretty dark, isn't it, Caleb?
It's a little dark. I mean, you know, I guess laundering money for a drug cartel and dealing with this kind of Ozark's
darker
laundering business.
underside.
Yeah,
kinda.
yeah. It's pretty dark. And the crime.
People growing poppies and.
Yeah, there's all kinds of fun. And I appreciate that narrative because the reality is that it's only 4 seasons, but with COVID-19 and all, things got delayed. And it seems like it's been a long time since we saw Marty and Wendy Bird at the beginning of their story in Chicago. And it seems like they've been in the Ozarks for a real long time. And man, it's been quite a ride. It has been a ride.
It really has. I got to tell you, just trying to put it together a quick little introduction to orient a few people.
Yeah.
It was impossible, man. There's so much that actually happens. Trying to fit some of the major themes in. I mean, it is a roller coaster ride from the word go, is it not? I mean, it
absolutely
never slows down.
Yeah. Never slows down. And the characters change throughout as well. And you see different threats to the Bird family coming along, and the Bird family finding creative ways to remove them as obstacles. And so you've got a lot of characters that come through, and you see the Bird family devolve throughout the series.
Massively. But you know what's interesting is, and there's a lot of weird, unexpected storytelling techniques being used here.
That's creative.
Their family devolves the more they are open with each other about what's going on.
That's true.
I mean, isn't that nuts? I've never seen that before.
Yeah, that's right. Usually, someone is kind of a moral sinner that brings them back. That really doesn't happen much in Ozark.
Much?
There are like some strings back and forth, like especially when the kids first start getting involved, because Marty and Wendy Bird have 2 kids. And when they start getting involved, there is, some initial concern, and but they all end up getting involved in the business. And I mean, by the end of the show, man, they're all in. It reminds me of like Breaking Bad. I was thinking about this the whole time I was watching the last season. It's like, man, you are on a ride, and I didn't know what was going to happen. You probably did. I bet you knew. I bet from like the first season, you, Mark, I bet you're like, I know where this is going to go. Did you feel like you knew where this was going to land?
Of course. No, the only thing I felt like I knew, and it was because of the storytelling that they were doing, was that there was no way this was going to end up good. Like, because what we basically have is the consequences of a story about how consequences of bad choices can snowball. And we saw that early on. Like the theme of the show, as I set it up for us, was, so he was a financial manager and he started doing a little money laundering. So money disappears and the cartel gets mad and he's like, oh, don't worry, I can fix it. You know how I'll fix it? By doing more of what I just did badly. I'll launder even more money for you. Yeah. And then you see more choices like that where something goes wrong and their choice is that they believe they can always fix the last bad choice with an even worse choice. That somehow that's going to make it better. And it leads me to this question. I'm wondering, is this simply a dark show about the saying two wrongs don't make a right? Do you think there's any chance that that's all that's really going on here? Is this just a dark way of telling the saying of 2 wrongs don't make a right? I
don't know. Things seem to work out okay for the Birds. So like I had a thought. Here's what I thought was going to be the more story part. Okay, because at the beginning of season 4 we see this we see this this foreshadowing where the car's in an accident, right? And you don't
Right.
know what's going to happen to him.
Yeah.
And
And
so
you don't even know the
go,
timeline of what happens.
you don't know the timeline. Yeah, right. So you go,
Mm.
but you go back in time.
Right.
We assume we go back in time some. And so we see the events of season 4 where things fully unravel.
Yeah.
But we also see, Wendy and Marty, especially Wendy, trying to take control, trying to control every little thing, and trying to control every little thing in a huge drug cartel, right? And so
Right.
it seems like everything's worked out, and then they get in this accident. And I thought for a moment the point of the story wasn't going to be
Yeah.
two wrongs don't make a right, but was going to be that that no matter how hard you try to control stuff, there's always some random event that can happen. I thought maybe Marty and Wendy were going to die,
Mm.
but they didn't, and they walked out of the thing unscathed.
Yeah,
Right? And so
that is true, but that's also part of
Yeah.
why I just keep going back. Like,
Yeah.
Sure, they're unscathed, but do we have any reason to believe that we're not going? The first 4 seasons, the story really was. You can do all the side stories you want. The story really was Marty and eventually members of his family
Yeah.
screw something up with people that are much more powerful and willing to kill you. And they go, oh, we'll fix this. And their choice tends to be doing something else that's messed up. And it gets worse and they make a bigger mistake. Like, that's the whole story. That's all it does. It just ramps up the whole time of,
it does.
Getting worse.
But what are the consequences for him, Mark? I mean, they lose people, but do they even really care? I mean, do they care about anyone that they end up losing? Even like family members, do they care about the brother who they have murdered? Other than the kids kind of care.
I mean, there's a little bit of caring in there. It's not a
Yeah.
whole lot. But do we have any reason to hope that they're not spending the rest of their lives on this ever ramping up? Because so here comes the big spoiler. If you don't want to spoiler, don't listen. So the conclusion of the show is this PI. What was his name? Will or something like that. Anyway, this PI. They'd been private investigator. PI Will. I don't remember what his name was. But
we'll make one up for him.
Oh, it's Mel. It's not Will. It's Mel. So he's been trying to figure out what's going on with the brother that got killed earlier in the show and has a lot to do. But anyway, he's there. He's kind of figured out what's going on. He's confronting the family. And they had finally just convinced both of the kids to come back home with them, particularly the son who was considering starting his own money laundering business because he had done so well for Ruth. And we need to talk more about Ruth. And you're not 100%, you just know he's okay with being with his family. And as this PI, Mel, calls out the family and is like, I know what's happened and you can't escape from this anymore. The son just pulls out the shotgun. We see he points it dead at the PI. As far as we know, he's never killed anyone before.
Right.
He's pointing it dead at the PI. Both of the parents look at the PI. The screen goes blank, and we hear.
Right. No remorse in this. No hesitation. Nothing. So this is what I think. So I think what you just said, I think it points to the real moral of the story. Do you
really,
have
I think it points to the fact that they just keep ramping up and it getting worse, and they're going to keep, as a family, running from the law and running from the cartel. And so, what do you think it is?
I think that's true. I think that's true. But I think the point is that the rich and the powerful get away with it. They get away with whatever is going on. Because
I don't know, because I mean, if you think about it, Navarro, the head of the cartel, he gets what's coming to him. He ends up dead. His brother, who was trying to take it over, ends up dead. Ruth, who was trying to go straight, ends up dead. They all are powerful people in their own right. So,
most of them are not white powerful people in the Midwest climbing the social ladder. And even Ruth, she comes from
white powerful men. Ruth is.
Well, that's true.
Male.
Well, yeah. Although Wendy, I think is powerful, but I think it's also a commentary on like social classes. Like, can Ruth really ever escape her background? I actually thought it was going to end differently, Mark. I thought
Okay.
Ruth was going to come out okay. I thought Ruth was going to get queen. I
agree.
thought she was going to run the casino. I thought the Bird
Well,
family was all going to die.
Well, you go.
I thought it was going to be
That's
the
a
opposite way.
that's a great thought, and it brings me to a
Yep.
question I was dying to ask you.
Okay.
And because it's one of the questions I always think of, particularly in dark shows.
Mhm.
Were there any redeemable character? Were any character? While I was watching, I was going, "Are any of these redeemable?" But at this point, did anyone get redeemed? Ruth is a great entry point into
Yep.
this conversation because
Yeah.
she does try to go straight. Like she finally
Yep.
says, "I'm out of this business. I'm going to run a clean casino." She
Mhm.
gets pulled back in by the FBI of all people, but she agrees to laundry money, but she's doing it under the FBI's direction. So technically, it's not a crime. So it was she redeemed? Was she redeemed?
No, I no, but see, I thought she was going to be. I
Ah.
thought that Ruth was going to experience this redemption arc. Everything's falling into place for Ruth,
Right.
and I thought, okay, she's going to be able to get away from all this. She's going to be able to live a different kind of life, and she's going to be able to move, into this world that she's always dreamed about. But at the end of the day, she ends up still doing everything that Marty Bird wants her to do. Right? Marty is the one who wants her to launder money for the Navarro cartel. I think she's just doing whatever Marty wants her.
I mean, she's being manipulated. She's being manipulated. I'll give you
She
that.
is, as she has been the whole time.
The whole time. But hey, she's not the only one. Tell me a relationship where there isn't manipulation and deceit as a big part, or at least part of the relationship. Were there any relationships that didn't have some manipulation and deceit going on? Even within the family who were
none.
Like, as the family was being completely honest with each other, here's what's going on as we're dealing with the drug cartel. They're still manipulating. They're still deceit.
And they have things.
Every relationship. That's
every single relationship. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna throw you one more name, and you may not even recognize this character's name, which tells you how sad it is that this might be, I don't know, the redeemable character. What about Maya Miller?
The FBI
Maya?
Agent?
Yes, the FBI agent who came in.
So she did
and lived with him for a little while.
Right. And then and had the baby and all. And so she does get to a point where she's not going to deal with the birds. She's not going to she's not going to have anything to do with the the way they're trying to manipulate the cartel. She's just and
she goes ahead and arrests him.
Goes ahead and arrests him.
And the rest of the FBI didn't want her to. And Marty and his wife didn't want him to. But she's like, justice must be served.
Here's the point where I think we see that maybe she has been redeemed. And that's whenever she's meeting with the PI. No.
Yeah.
And they've offered him
this
opportunity to go back. They've offered him this opportunity to go back to the Chicago PD. And he's trying to
get him to leave them alone.
Right, because they want to keep their kids. Alone. Yeah. And so she says something like, you know what the right thing to do is, and if you don't bother calling me again, don't bother ever coming back. And so maybe she's experienced a moral. Maybe she's become the only moral character in the Ozark universe.
Throughout her story arc, justice was always the most important thing to her. It's why she became a FBI agent.
Yeah.
And then, while I don't think it's our particular kind of Christianity, she also, after she talks to that PI, she calls the birds, and then she tells them that even if they get this PI to agree, that they are not going to be able to escape this, because God will still know what they have done.
Yes. And I think that line, Mark, leads to a lot of theological concerns about what happens in this life, about judgment, about the sense of cosmic judgment that maybe it would be good for us to talk about. And
I think you're right. So I tell you what, let's listen to just a little bit of our theme song, and come back and have that discussion.
Let's do it. Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We have poured our drinks. We have geeked out, and it is time to talk about the theopolitical aspects of Ozark, and there are a lot. One of the things that really amazed me about Ozark in a very unexpected way is the role that religion played, especially in this fourth season. I mean, we've seen it throughout, as we saw like drugs in the Bible at all in the first season, and people using a church service to pass drugs. That was interesting. But this fourth season, we saw a lot of religious folks kind of trying to give us religious narratives. We saw some maybe bad theology in it, but we also got some narratives about theology. And I think one of the more important ones is the one that you were talking about just a minute ago. And that's, is there some kind of cosmic judgment after we have gotten through this life? Like, it seems like the birds get away with it. I mean, maybe they're escalating. Maybe they're going to be running from the cartel their whole life. But it seems like everything has worked out for the birds at the end of the day. The family's back together. They're set up to be the most politically influential family in the Ozarks. They are a very wealthy family now. They've got their foundation up and running. The kids seemingly are all on board, and they have acted despicably. They have actively killed people. They have allowed people to be killed. They have been laundering money for the cartel. They have been corrupting people all around them. Mark, what do you think? For people who act like the birds, where they seemingly go through this life without any consequences, is there something else? Is there some kind of cosmic retribution for actions like that?
I sure hope so. Look, isn't that the answer you want from a minister? Is like, well, I hope so.
I honestly wasn't sure what you were going to say. I thought you might say, no, maybe not, you know?
Well, I don't know that there is necessarily. As a matter of fact, I think that we probably, as religious folks, spend way too much time reflecting on and considering whether there is, because the afterlife is whatever. It's real. It's not real. It has a judgmental God. It has an all-loving God. It has whatever. But ultimately, that is the unknowable. What matters is, does it have consequences now? And frankly, it does. Even for them, they have a wrecked marriage. They have this lack of trust between each other. The kids don't really trust their parents, but they feel like they got no choice but to be with them. They were so done with their parents that they were willing to run off talking about religion with Wendy's father, brilliantly played by Nathan Davis, John Boy, who plays this evangelical minister who's holier than thou on the outside, but that he's a horrible drunk and did not treat his own family well, and it's just so much bad going on.
Thank God there are no religious hypocrites like that in real life. Oh my gosh! Can you imagine if that were true?
That was the moment when I realized that was the moment when I realized this show really was fiction. I mean, there was no way.
It was the family all laundering money. That was all okay, but thank God there are no hypocritical religious people out there.
Absolutely. No. So I think what really matters is that, well, they may have technically got away with it. They didn't really. Life has this way of giving you a feedback loop. And I think maybe that's part of what this is about, the escalating and everything, is that life has this way of giving you this feedback loop. And you can decide to keep doing what you're doing, and you're probably going to get what was it, Einstein that said that stupidity is doing the same thing that you've always done and expect different results each time. That's not the exact quote, and it probably wasn't stupidity. It was something like that. But a lot of what's going on here is that, like, they have a wrecked relationship with everyone they're in relationship with, and that they never have, and this is what I was almost hoping for, at least a hint of it, a redeeming moment where they recognize that relationship might be more important than power and money. That's the only part that I really felt like they just left it in such a dark space, because what they've proven is using their power wrecks all of their relationships. And are any of them happy people?
I don't think so, but they also almost turned it into a positive, right? Because they're talking about Marty and Wendy's relationship as unconditional love. And I think that's one of the other theological themes that runs throughout this last season, is the idea of unconditional love. Now listen, Mark. So the priest, the priest says to Marty, he says, "Don't you think you're worthy of unconditional love? Do you think you can only have love if there are conditions? Is love transactional for you?" And then, like, at the end, right? And so I think this is maybe one of the problems with the show. At the end, Marty and Wendy, they're in the van, right before they have the accident, and Marty says, "I love you unconditionally." And there have been a lot of conditions, right? And so they're staying together with this unconditional love, and I think it's problematic.
How frequently does Marty say things to Wendy that isn't manipulative? He said,
they're both trying to manipulate each other, but I think they think it's love.
But what I'm saying, they may think it's love, but what I'm saying, because of his character, him saying, "I love you unconditionally," I have no doubt it was just another means of manipulating her. Like, come on. I mean, they don't. I mean, she cheated on the marriage. They both don't trust each other. They're having to check in constantly. I don't think it's
struggling for power.
Yeah.
So you're saying that Marty is using love, using unconditional love as a manipulation for power in the relationship,
to a degree, and I think part of it plays really like. Okay, let's talk just very briefly about acting, because one, I want to shout out Julie Gardner and Laura Linney are both just unbelievable in the roles. Like,
oh my God,
I can watch them do those characters from now on and now. Jason Bateman is Jason Bateman. He's not changing his character, but in a lot of ways, it's perfect for this character.
It is perfect.
And where I'm going with this, back to what we were talking about, because of the way he acts, it is somewhat emotionless, or at least very small amounts of emotion. And I think that's part of what's going on, is we have this character that's willing to manipulate everyone and really isn't in touch with himself, or has had a reason in his past to block off his emotions. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it plays into at least this hinting at he's never happy. He's always solving a problem. He's always puzzled. He's always he's always got a relationship that's falling apart, and he's trying how to scramble. And I wonder if part of him being this emotionless character points to what's like, it's almost that the most important thing in life and what they are trying to show you, they never talk about and they never show, and that's good relationships and real emotions. Like because
that's
I think Mel, right before he gets killed, I think he may have been like the little peek behind the curtain when he says that they aren't going to win because the world doesn't work that way. And then there's this sort of kind of underappreciated storytelling where they shoot him and you go, I guess the world does work that way.
Yeah.
But I'll go back to, are they happy? Are they in good relationships? Will they not be running from this? If anything, shooting him might have proven that the world doesn't really work that way. You have just created a killer out of your child. The world doesn't work that way. You're not going to win. You're already losing. He shot me. I don't know. Just a thought.
That sounds theological to me, Mark, that maybe some of the things that we often define as success, like money and power, the things that the birds are ultimately striving for, are things that the gospel tells us are not things that really give us life, are not things that really give us joy. But that the things that give us joy are exactly those things that you're talking about. The relationships that we have with one another, the caring and being in community with one another, and striving for something better in this life, and for true love that is not a manipulative kind of love. And at the end of the day, I mean, even when we're not talking about romantic love, but we're talking about human relationships, that's the kind of thing that we're striving for in human relationships too, right? Not transactional relationships, but relationships that are really about the upbuilding of other people, about the flourishing of other people.
Well, and you brought this up, and Ellen Green online has asked a great question. Is there really such a thing as human unconditional love? Is there? I mean, we want to believe it is. It's very romantic. I certainly have always felt that I was striving to try to understand how to do that and be that, not just for people close, but for people in general. It does feel like that's part of the gospel message, is to love unconditionally. But I think she touches on the human condition here quite well. Within the human condition, are we capable of doing that? And I'll up the ante on her question. Could that also be part of what the show is about, is showing that our human condition might not allow for that? I don't know. It's a great question. What do you think?
It is a good question. I think the closest we get to unconditional love is with kids, that you because I think our relationships that we make, or even the relationships that we inherit, like relationships with parents or whatever it is, whoever it is that care for us, that those tend to be much more conditional. I think with children, it's easier for it to be unconditional. But I think at the end of the day, maybe there still always are conditions. And so maybe that is something that we're always striving for. And, in the great divine element that connects us, we try to do a little bit better of unconditional love. Hey, look, Mark, that's a great question. That's a question that philosophers and theologians have been striving to answer for thousands of years. And so I'll ramble on and not get any more answer than anyone. If the great philosophers and theologians can't answer it, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer it with a moonshine margarita. But how about this?
I was hoping.
I know.
I was like, it's been a lifetime pursuit of mine, and I was like, well, I've got Caleb. I can.
I'm sure he'll be able to answer it, or at least he'll be able to ramble on and on incoherently. But here's something else, Mark. It is almost time for our Make Me Look Stupid round, and you last time you stumped me, and I bet you're gonna have another question that's going to make me look stupid today. Like, hey, Caleb, how about unconditional love? Can we ever accomplish that? I don't know.
I think I kind of blew it by giving that one up front.
Okay.
I couldn't help it. Ellen revealed it, and it was a brilliant question.
She stumped us. Okay. Hey, how about this? Think of your question. I'll think of one, and let's come back. Let's try and make each other look stupid.
Thank you for sticking with us this far into the Moonshine Jesus Show. We really appreciate you being here. Listen, you're joining us for our Make Me Look Stupid segment, where Caleb and I try to make each other look stupid with one question. And last week, it was our first time debuting this, and I admittedly intentionally asked Caleb a question that I really thought there was no answer for, just because I thought it'd be fun. And you know what, it was. But I'm not going to do that to you this time. I am not.
Okay.
I am not.
Okay.
I'm even going to go so far as to allow you to decide who asks the first question.
I'm going to let you go first, Mark.
Okay. All right. I will go
first. And it's not because I'm still thinking about my question.
Of course not.
Decided what it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not.
Right.
I'm sure it's not. All right. So here's my question. I think this is an answerable question. It happens to be a question that I think has political and maybe theological ramifications. But I'm not trying to make you look stupid as much as say this is a difficult. Okay, a little bit. No. As much as saying this is a difficult question that deserves to be struggled with, okay? So I'm bending the rules very slightly. So you compared this show a bit with Breaking Bad. I did too as I was watching it. What is the fascination, particularly in the United States, with middle-aged white male anti-heroes on a TV show? I mean, both of these are immensely popular, and what we have are white male anti-heroes. Why does that play so well to the American public? Because, in my opinion, it shouldn't. So why does it?
I think you're right, and it would be interesting. I've never looked at the demographics of either one of these shows, but it would be interesting to see who's watching these, and it would be interesting to know why. But I think I think you gave me the answer here. That I think that it is also common for people to kind of go through midlife crisis, and wonder like, who is it that I am? Have I not really lived, or that kind of thing? And so I think that's particularly common with white men as they enter middle age to wonder what it is.
You're such a nice guy. This is not the way I keep going. Keep going. It speaks to what a great soul you are. It really does. Keep answering.
Okay. All right. So I think that a lot of white middle-aged men are kind of living through a secondary bad boy phase through these characters, like me, Walter White.
I'm playing really loosely, calling myself middle-aged, but okay.
I'm about to enter into middle age. So I'm going to learn. I'm going to take a lesson from this. I'm about to enter middle age.
Yeah, I saw you buy your middle-aged car there.
I did. I did.
I like it though. I like it.
And so, but I'm not going to launder money for the cartel. And
really?
I'm not gonna.
You might reconsider life decisions.
Drugs at church service, like, is that off limits, Mark? I'm not sure that I ever got an answer to that in seminary.
There are certainly spiritual gatherings that have drugs. I've certainly heard that drugs can bring a spiritual experience. So I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
I do think it might be hard to launder money through the church, though. So maybe you do have to give up on that dream.
Okay, all right, I'll give it up. But you sounded like you had another thought on what this was, besides simple like middle age kind of stuff.
So listen, if you are a white male in America who spends life doing things that a lot of people would judge as wrong and questionable, sometimes illegal, sometimes just morally questionable. Would it not be good to be watching television shows where a person who's not completely unlike you, who is doing questionable things morally or even legally wrong, are the hero of the show? Would that not feel great? Would you not be like, yes, I understand, that's me. I might do wrong things, but ultimately I'm doing it for the, quote, right reasons. I mean, is that not... Or is that a little too on point? I don't know. I'm just saying.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I just feel like the idea of anti-heroes, particularly when you make them all, white, middle class, male, U.S. citizens, it just feels way too much like. So who is it that's wanting to hear that those people are actually kind of heroes? Well, it's the people who are acting like them that want to hear that they're kind of like heroes.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, fair enough. You've convinced me.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm right. I just know that's what. I just think it. I think it shows the difference between.
No element of that.
I think it shows the difference between me and you. You really have an actually genuinely good spirit about you, and I am an old cynical jerk. I'm like, there's got to be a bad reason people like this. I don't know.
Granted, I think going through midlife crisis isn't the best thing in the world. Okay,
Right.
so it's my turn. I've got a question
All
for
right,
you.
I'm ready.
Okay.
I think I'm ready.
Okay, so this is the point in the show that really that really kind of put things in perspective for me. So
Okay.
they've just
I hope
survived.
I remember it.
You will. It's in the last episode. They've
Oh.
just survived the car crash, or
Mhm.
second to the last episode, whichever one that
Right.
happened in.
Second to last.
And so,
I believe,
this
it was
is
a two-parter.
someone.
It was technically the last one. It was a two-part.
Right.
So
Okay.
technically the
Okay.
last
Good.
one.
Yeah. Either way, I'm
You
right.
were right. I'm just trying to prove you're right. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, so one person we haven't talked about at all yet is the priest for Navarro, who is maybe the most overt religious imagery we see. Right, the guy wearing the collar, which is an interesting character. Okay, but the car has crashed. They've come out seemingly unscathed. And the priest says, how many times does God have to point to you before you notice? I think this accident was your last warning. And then Wendy, with no hesitation, says, no, it was an assurance that we were going to make it out alive.
Yeah.
Which shows you the bird's perspective on the world.
Yeah.
But here's my question, Mark.
I'm already dreading this based on the setup.
Do we get divine warnings like that? Do we get pieces of our lives that tell us we're headed in the right direction or not? What does that look like for us?
I'm going to give you one 2-word answer that is simple.
Okay.
And then I'm going to give you a longer answer that actually almost feels like it negates my first answer.
Now, everyone, pay attention to how quick he came up with that. Like within 2 seconds, I'm going to give you a 2-word answer, and I'm going to give you this. I love this.
Right,
okay, I want to see where you're going.
The first answer is hell no.
Okay,
that's the first answer.
We don't get any indication.
No,
okay,
not from God. We don't get some kind of God sign that this or that's going to happen. But listen.
Okay. Negate it now. I want to hear the long explanation.
Now I'm going to tactfully possibly negate it by. So I was answering the question based on the character's understanding of who and what God is. That there is some divine providence of God that looks down on the world and makes choices about interacting with the world, which for me is a bunch of really bad theology because it makes God this thing that needs playthings. And then is willing to step in and interact and negate free will on behalf of some and not on others. That is not a God that I ever need to know about, think about, or deal with ever again. Now, I'll back that up and say, the God that I believe you and I both think of and understand is more of, frequently when I preach, I say this thing that we call God. Trying to disanthropomorphize God, trying to say there is something that we don't quite understand. I do believe that there is this thing larger than us that connects us all, that is grounded in love, that through each other and through our interactions with the world and the things we say to each other and how we respond to each other does speak to us if we choose to listen to life, not listen to some magical gray-haired white male God in the sky that chooses who gets blessings and who doesn't, but rather to this universal reality of connectedness. If we're willing to sit down long enough and really listen to what life is telling us in terms of how it plays out, in terms of how it affects emotions and relationships, that is a voice that I could possibly label as God. That if I'm paying enough attention over enough time and giving myself time to reflect on it, could direct me towards what really matters in life.
You know, I think the way that I've experienced that a lot is in community, and I think if we think that God is present in the midst of good, healthy relationships, so you know, not like the birds, like the opposite of the birds. Like think of the birds, and like the opposite of that, like true supportive, caring relationships, and whether you know you experience that, hopefully in a religious community or other communities in your life, whether it's like some kind of AA community, whether it's some kind of friendship community, no matter what it is, your chosen family, whatever it is, your given family, that if you can experience those kinds of relationships, that is in some way the great divine, the universe somehow speaking truth into your life. And at least for me, that's often the way that I've heard that kind of discerning voice is through people I know, love, and trust to give me some incredible answers to how I ought to approach life. And so I appreciate you, Mark, for helping me figure out how to approach life through Ozark today.
Wow. I think we both have done all that. We while there might not be redeeming characters, I think the two of us have done what we can. Maybe. I think somewhat. But the sad part behind the story is that she betrays both the FBI, in their eyes, the FBI and the birds, and so she gets demoted and becomes a minor character that we don't ever hear from again. Like that's kind of sad. But listen, I do think while there are not any truly fully redeemable characters or redeemed characters, you and I did our best to redeem the show and bring something that we can all learn out of it.
I think we tried. I think we really tried.
Absolutely.
So, well, I appreciate the conversation, Mark. I appreciate all of you. Cheers to all of you out there watching. I hope that you finished your drink as I finished mine.
I've got a little more to go.
You better chug it, Mark, so you can see your mythical creature. Okay.
Absolutely. Fantastic.
Hey,
absolutely. Just a great time. Appreciate the conversation. And as you said, thanks to all of absolutely on
the Moonshine
Jesus
Show.
Moonshine